Alright, so Chromebooks and your notes from yesterday. I'm going to tell you where your notes went yesterday.
I don't know what time it is.
I'm going to show you where your notes went for yesterday. So you guys took notes yesterday, you typed them out. They go under student toolbox, and the last one, it says lecture on it, lecture crusades. Okay, so you go there, you hit new post and you paste it in. If you weren't here yesterday, that's where the lecture is, so you can actually watch it there. What?
Yeah, she talked about the Renaissance.
Yeah,
Wait,
yesterday.
is the video camera recording right now? Hi.
What camera?
Yeah, well, there's reasons I don't usually
Do you videotape earlier vlogs because you know we're bits?
No, I just usually do it because it's easier to get them online by now. Alright, the camera died earlier. So, thank you to you.
It's just the camera.
Alright, so up here, really quickly, because I'm ready to go on, I'm ready to go for class today. Come on. So the today stuff, it's in the Learn, and it's in SOI history notes, and it's arts and architecture, and it says it in there for today, 11-12. You'll copy and paste your notes in there when you're done. Alright, you should be finished with the Learns by the end of this week. The Learns, or more. More is always better. But the Learns in geography, religion, and architecture and arts. So GR and A for grades. You should be done with the Learns by the end of the week. Because that's where you should be to be on time. Okay.
Oh, do you want us to take notes on this?
Yep.
Alright. Oh, alright.
So we are going to move on, and I am going to have a long class today and a short class tomorrow. So I can get most of this done today, short class tomorrow. Then in other words, you'll have time to work tomorrow. Alright, so I'm doing the arts and the Renaissance. I'm doing arts today and tomorrow. Friday I'm doing religion. Monday Smithy's going to do religion too. He'll finish up religion with Henry VIII and the Reformation. I get Martin Luther and the Reformation. Okay, so arts and the Renaissance. There are a couple of rules we need to follow before we go through class. I don't care if you start a new document or if you continue on the same one that you're on. It just make sure you put the date on it so you know where you are. Alright, so today's date is 11-12. The title of this is Arts and the Renaissance, so that should all be down for you. 11-12. Alright, so here's a couple of rules that we need to realize. First and foremost, we're talking about art. It's Renaissance art. I expect you to be mature. If you are not mature, I will not let you stay.
Oh, does it have like weird stuff on it?
Okay.
Just search up Renaissance art on Google.
Alright, so we're going to go through and show you some of the artwork, show you some of the pictures. The other part I want you to realize is that the church had a lot of control during this time period. A lot of control. Whether good or bad, it had a lot of control. It also had a lot of money. Because the wealthy people gave money to the church to get out of sins. They didn't want to have to go and do their penance, so they would just give money instead.
Wow.
If a second son didn't want to have to go fight in war because they might have to die, they would go into the church, so daddy would buy them a place in the church. The more money you have, the higher up you can go. So you have to realize that when we talk about art and when we talk about all these different things. They're all influenced by the church. And the rules of the church make a difference in what happens. So one of the rules of the church works like this. Women shall not be shown unclad. What does unclad mean? Naked. So women are supposed to be shown naked. Now, here's the interesting thing about these painters and artists.
All the women were naked.
They didn't really follow the law the way it was meant to be. And this, your mom goes, just a minute. And you're like, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
You know that they really mean just wait till they're done You know they mean wait till they're done. They don't actually mean a minute. They just mean wait till they're
Oh,
done.
really? Oh.
And you are taking what they said versus what they meant. You know there's a difference. So that's exactly what these artists are going to do.
So when
They're going to take what the church said, not what the church meant. We call that taking the letter of the law versus the spirit of the law. So they're going to follow the letter of the law. Women can't be unclad, so they can't have naked women. All right, we're going to tie a ribbon around her neck. She got naked.
Wow.
Really? Really? So they're going to actually do that. They're going to actually take this and they're going to tie a ribbon around the neck and then they'll go on. Now, here's the funny thing. Today in our society, it's not actually as taboo to see more of a female than it is of a male. Men tend to cover themselves up, whereas women tend to show themselves. Back then, not the case. Because people going to the art exhibits were men, not women. And so it was less okay for men to look at mostly nude women than it was for them to look at mostly nude men. They got the same parts, they know what they look like, so it's not a big deal.
Well, how come most of the like statues and like gardens and stuff are men?
Because it was the men who were going to be out in those statues. They weren't in those gardens before. You have to understand that you're talking about 1800s. I'm talking about 1500s. 300 years is going to make a big difference. Those statues are going to be in places where men go. Universities, women didn't go to universities. Art exhibits, women didn't go to those in 1500s. We stayed at home.
The only one that I've seen is my grandma's neighbor's yard.
So, did you go to big castles? You'll see things like that in there.
To art things to see they can do.
Well, they went to art things to see art,
Which was mostly naked women.
which was both, because these guys are going to be equal opportunity. That's my point. So the other thing you need to understand is a movement in the time period is going to be called humanism. All right? Humanism is a big deal. A really big deal. And sometimes, though it's not meant to be, sometimes at odd with the church. So it's going to sometimes have issues with the church. It's not meant to be that way, but it does happen. Humanism is all about humans. It's about humans.
Well, that's surprising.
It's about the human experience from birth to death. It's about life. It's about you and me and how we act and react, how we think of things, how we feel about them. And the art is trying to make you feel, see, do something. It wants to evoke emotion in that human experience.
Movement and what?
The human experience.
Movement and
They're trying to make that impact statement on our wall over here. They're trying to make an impact. They're trying to make your life so it can't go back. You have been changed by the art perception. That's what they're trying to do. So, your big question after learning that these are the two things that we have to understand about the Renaissance art, your big question for today is to understand why someone is called a Renaissance man. Why would they call one of the people that's an artist or in architecture or in music, why would they call one of these people a Renaissance man? Usually that's in quotations. They called Steve Jobs not too long ago, right after he died, they called him a true Renaissance man for our modern time. They still use that term. It still shows up.
Maybe because they kind of like make the Renaissance stuff.
Well, I'm going to go through and give you information that you will have to come up with your idea of why. I'm going to go through and give you the information. I'm going to tell you about the Renaissance. I'll tell you who some of the Renaissance men, the ones that are in quotation, were back then. I'm going to give you some of the things that they did or looked at or looked into, what was looked up on and down on, but I'm not going to answer the question for you.
So you're
I will dance around the subject, but not do it completely. All right, so that's always me. I'm always that way. So you have to realize that many of these people are going to show up in more than one category. That again goes with that idea of Renaissance man. more than one category. So they may be an artist or a musician or an architect, but they also might study things like philosophy. They might study science or technology or medicine, politics or theology. Do you know what theology is? Gotta guess.
Study of something?
Study of something. O-L-O-G-Y means study of.
Statements.
Thesis statements, okay. What else do we got?
Thesis.
Theology, what do you think it is? Good. Good.
Study theories.
It's a good guess. What do you think?
Study of religion.
It's religion. So I always like that. I always like it when people go theories. Because, you know, I'm thinking my minister at church would laugh and think that was pretty fun. He'd be like, yeah, so people think it is theories. Yeah. Theology is religion. So it's a big word, you need to know what that means. So it's the study of religion. That we also talk later on, we'll talk about countries being theocracies. It means that they have a religious government. So Middle East is a lot of theocracies. You do not have to type the slides, by the way. Just in case. Well, I've got the slides engaged. So.
Oh,
This is engaged. You're taking, I'm giving you 1%, you're gonna get the 99%. And you don't have time to type all these down.
I'm not typing all of them, just like almost.
Okay, major points is fine. All right, so I've got 3 artists up here. I picked 3 of the 4 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for you.
Yeah.
No Donatello. I left poor Donatello. I didn't really mean to leave him out, but he was not in the same grouping with these guys. He is a Renaissance artist. He's just before these 3. And I wanted to pick 3 that were close together. They're called contemporaries. Contemporary means same time period. So these 3 are contemporaries, and so I've got my resources in here, so you can go clicky on the resources too. I'm going to show you a little bit of the stuff on the resources. But Leonardo, Michelangelo, and Raphael, they actually are out of time order, but for some reason I'm weird and I put things in alphabetic order all the time, just like clicky, and that's how my head goes. Michelangelo is the oldest, Leonardo is the middle, and Raphael's the baby of the group. And you know, maybe it's just because he's the middle child. I'm not really sure. No, they're not related. But maybe it's because, you know, Leonardo's the middle child, but he's also the most trouble.
Yeah.
No, because of
No, they're out of order. Michelangelo's the oldest. Leonardo's middle, Raphael's baby. They're in alphabetic order, not time order.
every time they say these names, I think of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's so confusing.
Well, it's okay. They kind of act like them. All right. So Leonardo, he is different. Yeah. You know, today we would probably call him ADHD.
Like me?
like you.
Like you. Exactly like
He would probably be. We probably call him that. He flips from one thing to another, but he also had that completion. He would complete things. He was just hyper. He had lots of energy. He needed the church.
Needed it.
Needed the church.
He needed Jesus.
No, he needed the church for this.
This is Leonardo.
He needed the church for money. Remember, the church has the money. Leonardo needs the money. He is not a rich person on his own. So he needs the church's money. He needs their support, patronage, support, to do his own work that he wants to do. So he can't take them off. But he can ignore them. I don't know if that's the right word. You know that what you're doing you're not supposed to be doing, but you go ahead and do it anyway and hope you don't get caught.
Let's
Woo! So I mean, this is what he does. And so Leonardo is interesting that way because he wants to make his sculptures and paintings more lifelike. And he does a very good job of this because there's one sculpture that the sculpture's hand is coming out like this. Looks like he can palm somebody's head. But his hand's coming out like this. And you can see the muscles through the arm, the back, the stomach, and all the way through the leg. You can see them move. You can actually feel as if the marble was going to move any second and reach out and grab somebody. Because he looks, the way the statue is put together, it looks like this person's body is actually the way it would be if it was your eye moving. It looks that good. It's that, that motion. There's the motion
Do you have
to
a picture
it.
of it?
Do I have a picture of it? No, I have one I took, but it's gone. And I
What
did
is it
pull one of
called?
those.
I can search it up.
I have no idea what it's called. I saw it in
The
the loop.
arm thingamajigger.
I saw it in the loop, and I remember it was him and what it was like.
Wait, which artist?
Lou.
Oh my god.
I've got all of his works. We'll
Leonardo.
look at it here in a minute.
Who?
There's.
Who's work?
Hey, be quiet and let her talk.
Okay, Logan, we're talking about Leonardo da Vinci, and I've got all of his works here in a minute, and I'm going to show you the ones I went to. I'm just using an example. Yeah,
Where can I plug my computer in?
more over here. All right, so when he did this to get his bodies to look like that in the paintings or in the sculptures, he had to kind of ignore church mandates.
They were naked.
Well, he didn't want to, it's not even that. For him to figure out how the muscles in the body looked, what does he have to do?
Kill somebody.
See that?
Kill somebody.
Didn't he look at dead bodies?
See the bodies.
It's different.
Oh, so
So-
he was a grave robber.
He's going, sometimes, he's going to actually go to the jails, and when they execute people, he's going to ask for the bodies, and he'll do an autopsy, basically. Well, the church did not agree with that. That was not okay. You couldn't do that. But he's going to. He wants to see how the muscles move. By the way, in medical books today, Leonardo da Vinci's drawings are still shown. His drawings are that good. The muscle attachments, the way they work, the systems in the body, what it looked like. He drew it so well,
So
we
he
still
was a
use it today.
scientific artist, kind of.
That's you, yeah. He did medicine. He looked into medicine. He was a good chemist. He made his paints. If you wanted a color to paint with, he had to make it. He's not going to just go to the store and buy paint. They didn't have that. You made it. You had to know what things went together to make the colors. So he's going to do all of these different things. He's also going to make inventions.
Like
Okay,
a
so
plane.
the little, yeah, he tried to do a plane. The little kids have the Tonka trucks, you know, they put their little guy in it and they crank the little thing up and the string pulls the guy up. You know?
I have one
The
of
little
those.
crane, a baby crane, it's like a little baby's crane. And they just they're sitting out there, they put sand in it and it goes up and then they can dump it out. I know,
That
my
sounds so interesting.
2-year-old niece has one. She likes it a lot. But it's basically Leonardo da Vinci's design. He developed the first crane.
That's amazing.
So they can move heavy blocks to help them build churches. He also built siege engines.
What's that?
Catapult. Oh, I do that. So here's one of Leonardo da Vinci's catapults. This is what it would have looked like, and it actually ran and worked. And Mr. Smithy's got a kit here that he wants me to put together at some point. But it worked really, really, really well. It would actually fling the little rock or marble or whatever you got there a really long way. And it works on pulleys and levers, just like the crane does.
He built the first one?
He built, not the first one, but he made them better.
Oh.
He took on jobs for money mostly. He also, a lot of the practical things that he built, they're really cool. Some of the practical things he built are really, really good. The little helicopter you've seen, it looks like it's got like a corkscrew on top. The Mythbusters built it, by the way. They actually tried it. When they built it and they tried to like launch it, it actually would pick you up and drop you, and pick you up and drop you. So he wasn't too far off. I mean, it did work. It just didn't work well. It worked. So he built the first version of a helicopter. He also drew plans for a submarine. He drew plans for an airplane. He drew plans for a lot of things like that. He was really good at forward thinking. So let me show you what some of his stuff looked like, so you can see actually what his artwork looked like.
If it weren't for him, do you think we'd have airplanes and stuff?
Yes.
Yeah, probably. This is one of the ones that people mostly know, The Last Supper, 1498, and he's the guy that did this. He drew that. We think that this is probably Mary Magdalene, but nobody knows for sure. This is Jesus in the center, of course. And yeah, and he did that. He painted yours. And he also did the Mona Lisa. He's the guy at Mona Lisa, by the way, is only about that big. He's only that big. It's probably about the size of it on the screen there. It's not huge. It's not the size of a wall.
Is it
That would be
trying to paint
cool.
on eyebrows?
No, I don't think so.
No, they shaved the eyebrows because back in the past it was popular.
Yeah, and they also, well, a lot of times they also wore wigs and didn't wear actual long hair.
George
So, yeah. Here's the other one that he's famous for, the Anatomy of Man, and this is the one. It's a study of man, and you've seen it a lot of times. This whole picture like
I've
this.
seen
you've
that a couple times on here.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of those. He did those, and then there's this one, which is always fun. It's a rich woman, and he did it for her husband. But it was a pretty drawing, and it's one of the ones that's made it. It's just a pretty picture. All right, the other guy, Michelangelo. It always does that. It always goes to Raphael. Oh, just think about it. All right, Michelangelo. All right, Michelangelo's famous for this. Michelangelo was a cantankerous guy. He was about 10 years older, maybe 15 years older than Leonardo. And they knew each other. I'm not going to say they didn't get along. They had like, have you ever, yeah, have you ever seen somebody's like got something that you wish you could do that? And you're like, man, it's so cool. But you are so not going to tell them it's cool.
Yeah.
You ever felt that way? You're like,
I'm sure.
yeah, you're like, man, that is awesome, but I'm so not going to tell you that's cool. And you know it's cool. You wish you could do that. That's Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci. That's how they felt. They felt about each other. Well, it's kind of like they respected what the other one could do, but they were still not going to tell the other one that they were. Oh man, that's awesome.
They respected it, but they jealous.
Yeah, they respected and appreciated what the other one did, but they're not going to let on because their ego won't let them. They want to be the best. So they're not going to do that. This is the famous picture that you see, the fingers touching. Of course, this is supposed to be God, and this is man. He's obviously on land, so that's Adam. And yeah, well, this is Adam and God. And so you've got this in a building. You know what building this is? It is. It's in a church.
Oh, come on.
It's in a church. Lou's not a church. That was palace.
Sure it is.
Something church.
Somewhere in France.
The first church in America.
Italy.
The
Okay.
Got
it?
That's my quote.
Does it start with
the
the
Vatican?
Sistine Chapel.
I knew it.
I knew that. I was just
Okay,
making
this
sure.
is in the Vatican City. It's where the Pope is. In fact, Michelangelo painted this under a request for the Pope, and he spent 2 years laying on his back. He nearly went blind. Paint dropped in his face, and the paints were not actually good for you. And he drew this or painted this, and what's really funny about it is that the Pope was not happy with it when he was done. He wanted it taken down. Yeah. Of course, it could be that Michelangelo was antagonistic towards the Pope and threw paint at him. But he didn't like it. If you look at this guy here, who's supposed to be God, who does he kind of look like? Reminds you of anybody ever seen him?
Zeus.
Who looks like Zeus. And there are people behind him.
They're angels, obviously. Angels.
Supposed to be angels. This little guy is like a cherub, you know, they're supposed to be angels. But a lot of them look kind of like Roman gods. So it's a little strange that he did that, but he wasn't, I think he was just, at this time period, they're looking back at the Greeks and the Romans and thinking, oh, we should use their kinds of things. They were so smart, they knew so much, we should learn from them. And then they are looking at the things that are, you know, before and going, okay, well, you know, Middle Ages wasn't such a good time for us, we should look back at the Greeks and Romans. That's what they're doing. They're looking back at their classic period. We today look back at the classic period and think then. They look back at the classic period and think Greek and Roman.
So
What did the Greek and Romans look at when they wanted to look
He was
at
mad. So,
After 2 years
yeah.
of painting?
Yeah, after 2 years painting, like you didn't know it was there. But the famous thing is that the two fingers touching, that's the famous, you see the two fingers, you know, that all the time, just that in square sometimes. And it's huge. God is like the size of this room.
Oh my God.
So this is not like a small painting. This is like the size, you know, it's the ceiling of a huge church.
I was scared.
So,
I have a question.
I have
Why would he paint that upside down?
He didn't paint it upside down.
Upside down, but like when he's like laying down.
Well, because how are you going to paint on a ceiling?
Is that
Duh.
what paint charters are?
Oh, I thought we.
But how-
No, it's you're on the ceiling. So how is he going to paint on the ceiling?
Oh.
Yeah, you don't want to paint like that, that'd be bad.
Wait, how would he paint if it was like really up high?
Scaffolding.
What?
But it's really dangerous.
The little things that they use when they're
Towers.
constructing stuff.
Yeah, yeah. All right, the other one he did was Statue David, and I like the Statue David, and I appreciate Statue David for what he is, but he's in like a big corridor, and Statue David's at the end, and the rotunda, the big thing, beautiful, light all on him. But to me, when I was walking down the way, there are these emerging figures that were much more interesting, and there were 12 of them. It's right next door to a church. 12 of them, church.
Oh.
There they are.
Oh, disciples.
Disciples. Okay, so they're the disciples. And you can actually tell who they are, even though they're actually the names of the statues of the 12 disciples, and they named each one of them off. But he didn't finish them.
Why not?
He died.
Oh, that was
So he didn't finish them. But there's the one that sticks out in my brain really, really, really hard. Is the one doing this. And he's got in his hand, he's got this bag.
Judas.
And he's sitting there with his head covered. But the thing is that you see the arm here, the hand is curled up into an arm, but there's no face. It's unfinished there. And you see the hand come out with the gold and the arm all the way up the shoulder, but it's unfinished. The rest of it's still a block of stone.
So it's real gold?
No,
Oh my
it's
gosh.
stone, it's marble. But I mean, do you see what I'm saying? All these statues, you see bits and pieces of the bodies, but they're not finished. So you'll see a knee sometimes, or a shoulder, or a hand coming out of the stone. It's kind of weird. But I was much more mesmerized by them than I was the beautiful statue David. Now, while I recognize the statue David is 12 feet tall and he's an adolescent boy, standing there with his thumb drawn over his shoulder with a cape behind him, I understand and realize why he is so beautiful and what he's done, and that he understood the human form. I do, but I thought the emerging forms were just cool. I forget the words. The way he done it, and the way he didn't finish it because he died, but it was just interesting. But that's David's face if you ever need to know what he looks like. All right, Raphael. We've got Raphael up over here, so I'll just pull him up. Raphael was the baby of the family, if you will, and he did lots and lots of religious work. We've all known that one, right?
I can't see.
The Sistine, he did some of the cherubs in the Sistine Chapel.
Sistine Madonna.
Yeah. So he's done some of the cherubs that are in the Sistine Chapel. He does lots and lots of Madonna and Child.
Of who?
Madonna and Child. Who's Madonna?
Singer.
She is, but not this one.
Looks like Cupid.
Madonna and Child. I'll pull one up. I'll pull up a Madonna and Child.
Let me search it up.
They're like
If you
all
search Madonna
girls.
Child.
I can pull up Madonna and Child right
Who
there.
is Madonna?
Oh,
The
Okay, Madonna and Child, right there. There's a Madonna and Child. So who's that?
That's Mona Lisa.
Madonna. It's Mary and
Oh, that's right.
Jesus. I told you he's religious. He did a lot of these. So he did a lot of these. And you can barely see it, but it comes from right below their ears. And they've got this little halo that goes around their heads.
Oh, I see it.
It's a little tiny line that goes around. It's showing that these are who they are. So you'll find that on Mary and Child. So you'll know who they are.
They're
They
always
almost always. It's just one of those things that they do to show you who they are in case you missed it. It's like going, hey, stupid, this is who this is.
Oh my
So
God.
just in case you missed it or you're not smart and you don't know anything about it, they're going to tell you who it is. So he's religious art. He does a lot of rich people's art. Not as much of the thinking and stuff, not as much of the outside, not as much of the sculpture. He was mostly a painter. But he also did a lot of inventions. He too did inventions. Not as many as Leonardo da Vinci, but he too did the same things. Though he did not look at bodies as much. He did do some. They all did.
Yeah, there's one
Leonardo,
right
like,
there.
what? It just freaks me
Ugh,
out.
and
He
there's-
would like go and get the dead body.
So then you got that's how your doctors learn.
You'll have
I know, but like when he was doing the one with like that, we need like a live person to see how.
You just moved it in solid muscles.
wait, what didn't he do?
Yeah, he did some. All of them did something. The doctors at the time were not allowed to look at dead bodies.
Ew,
All right, architecture. Architecture up here. So there's the whole idea that somebody wrote the book on something.
What?
You ever seen somebody go, well, you must have wrote the book on it? You know, you're kind of being snarky at them. You're telling them, man, you like act like you know so much. Well, this guy really did write the book on it. Alberti really did write the book on Renaissance architecture, and he had such an original title: 10 books on architecture. I know, not very many. But, you know, he did write the book on the Renaissance architecture. No, he did not know that they were in the Renaissance. He just wrote the book on the architecture of the time period. Today, if we want to look at architecture in the Renaissance, we still pull his book.
Oh, they're gonna be cool.
He has, like, the book on Renaissance architecture, even today.
There were 10 books of Renaissance architecture.
That's the title of the book. 10 books, yeah. That's literally the title, 10 books on architecture. All right.
So why did
Because to you and I, a book means big long thing. To them, it might mean something that was like 30 pages. And so they took and bound those things together. One, it's like a, what do we call that, a compilation? All right, so he wrote the book. Now the next guy is going to take his book. It's like me teaching you something and then you having to do a project with it. He's going to take this guy's book and he's going to put it into practice. So I want you to see what his practice was. So this guy's name is Bramante. And he is going to build, so bring up a Google page, image search,
what did we look up?
Okay.
St. Peter's Basilica. Just do your best on spelling.
Basilia?
Basilica.
Got it.
Catholic.
All right, ready?
Comments are allowed.
I know exactly where it is.
Okay.
Is that the
So-
White House?
Nope. The White House is patterned after it.
No, it looks just like the White House.
It looks like it's on the something, yeah. Okay, so where is this?
In
Italy.
Italy.
Italy? Where in Italy? Vatican
Northern.
City? Is it Vatican City? What person uses this church?
Wait,
The Pope. This is the Pope's church.
I know its exact address.
I'm sure you do. It's on the thing there, is it not?
Piazza San Pietro 00120 Città del Vaticano Vatican.
Good Italian. All right. So Bramante, he's going to build St. Peter's Basilica. He's going to build some other things. So Alberti, I've seen some of his buildings, but I can go, oh, he built that. I've seen them. They're pretty. They kind of match in with all the other ones. But Bramante, when he built St. Peter's Basilica, he stood out. It's one of those things that we go, ooh, he built that. And we all know it. Because we've seen this picture before. We've all seen St. Peter's Basilica either on the news or sitting in history class. Yeah.
It doesn't say feet or inches, but I'm guessing it's 453 feet.
I would take meters. All right. So he's going to be the guy that you remember his artwork. You remember his architecture. You remember the things that he does. And these guys, all of them, also were painters and sculptors. But they're famous for their architecture. All right. Sarilo, he's going to go the opposite direction of the other two. The other two are building bigger and better, more glorious. He's going to be more practical. Yeah, he's going to be more practical. He's the guy that's going to worry about you and I and our comforts. While he built beautiful things, what he built was pretty. It was also very practical. Yes, ma'am.
What was the statue called that wasn't all the way finished? Like it had the
They were actually the 12 apostles, but they called them emergent figures. So they are actually, these are actually, you know, his stuff that he built. A lot of it they use in the theater. A lot of it, his ideas they use in the theater. But he also worked on things that you and I need, like how to make indoor plumbing work in a average person's house. So on a cold day like today, you didn't have to go outside and latrine it. Burp. I mean, seriously, it's cold. I don't want to go outside.
I don't usually.
So, I mean, you know, that's what he's doing. He's not going to be the guy that you're going to, he's not the guy that you're going to go, he built that, it's amazing. You're not going to do that with him. He's going to build something that today we use, and we have no idea that it came from him. that make sense?
Like toilets.
Yeah, he's gonna be the guy that we built on something that he did. So
do you mean
you've
the
got the guy that wrote the book on things, the guy that's a superstar, and the guy that everybody needs, but doesn't know who he is.
So he really did make toilets.
So we build stuff, we take what he built and make it better.
It's like a hero in disguise.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, would you like to go pee inside of the-
quiet.
Okay, so advancements, focus on. Alright, advancements. So science and art. So this slide is a small slide, but it should be ginormous. And I've just shrunk it down to the bare minimums. Okay, science and art. Those two are gonna go together. Today, science and art don't necessarily go together in our brains. They should. Y'all ever looked at a circuit board?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, yes.
My grandma was like one of those. Does that stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've looked at circuit boards and I've thought, yeah, they're really pretty. I mean, they are. They have their own kind of form and movement to them. And you know what? Engineers are kind of an odd crew. If you go, they call it a rabbit hunt. It's actually called that. Because the first ones were rabbits. You would look for the little tiny, they're about that big.
I can't
yeah,
even
I
see
saw
that.
that.
And
I
you'll
can't
go
even see
and
that.
see the little tiny pictures. Well, those are a common one.
Where
Rabbits are
are
common. Peace signs common. A lot of things like that. You'll find these little bitty pieces of artwork in the circuit boards, in the layout of the circuit board, because they put it there. Yeah, because they put it there. So again, you're still having that art and science. Today, if you want to study medicine, do you know what one of the major degrees is that they accept you from?
Science.
Art.
Math.
Music.
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 Use that word music.
Music because, one, it takes a lot of dedication, and two, generally if you're going to do something like that, a lot of the ones that they're looking at are piano players. Surgeon, they gotta be able to use their hands and use them precisely. Very precise movement of the fingers.
I played
So, you think about that, it kind of makes sense. So, and also doctors, generally a lot of doctors, they like playing music. A lot of them are piano, violin.
What about like saxophone?
That does happen, but you know that's actually going to happen more in the social science, like the psychology and sociology. You find them more doing that. I don't know why.
Crazy.
So, all right, the scientific revolution. So you've got some major scientists in here, and there are some that you need to look at versus what I've given you. So I can't leave off Sir Francis Bacon. He's got a good name. Bacon. We got Sir Francis Bacon. You really do need to look up and see what Sir Francis Bacon did. He's actually quite useful for us today. But Galileo Galilei is the one I'm going to spend a couple minutes on because I want you to hear what he did. And know that a few years ago, probably more than a few years ago, in 1990, so not really a long time ago, Galileo Galilei was finally given a partial pardon by the Catholic Church. Yeah. So Galileo Galilei, back in the 1500s, said, one, that the earth is not the center of the universe. And two, that the earth goes around the sun, not the sun goes around the earth.
Yeah.
Okay? So you're looking at me like, well, duh. But that was news back then. And he got in trouble with the church for saying that. They told him if he didn't take his statements back, that they would kick him out of the church. So, yeah, excommunicate, kick him out. They'd kick him out of the church, yeah.
Why was that such a big deal?
Because the church said that the earth was the center of the universe.
And the sun revolves around it.
That all things came from the earth because our thoughts were the
Talk
most
about
important.
self-centered.
Exactly. Well, so you're looking at this and you say, okay, so Ms. Henderson, you said they gave him a partial pardon. Agreed. The church in 1990, I think it was 1990, maybe later. It's not before that, it's later. But they said that they agreed that Galileo Galilei was correct, that yes, and you've got to think about this, this is like 90s, when they said that yes, the sun, the earth does go around the sun, and that the earth is not the center of the universe. However, Galileo should not have said that.
Did he get shot?
What? Whoa.
He should not have contradicted the church.
Did he get shot?
No, they put him in, let's say, seclusion.
What's that?
They
Secluding him.
basically put him at, they put him in a house that was owned by the church, and they put, I'm not gonna say guards, they weren't really guards, but they were. Their purpose was to be a guard, but they weren't there to keep him in, they were there to keep others out. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
They didn't want people coming in and listening to his thoughts, because you know, those thoughts were bad thoughts, bad thoughts.
So it's kind of like a mental
A mental asylum for one person.
No, it's more like a prison for one.
Amazing.
Because,
Like,
I mean, they don't call it,
like school.
you know, especially for you maybe. So you know that there's sometimes people will say one thing and mean another.
Yeah.
So they said it was seclusion, but they meant prison.
It's so amazing.
So, I mean, it's what it was. The other one is in there is Descartes. He's interesting. And then Sir Isaac Newton. I know you've heard about Sir Isaac Newton.
Yes, I've
Yes.
heard of him.
Okay, Sir Isaac Newton, you've heard about him. He's the laws of motion that you have to have for science class. But he's also done a couple other things. He worked in mathematics. So a lot of your algebra formulas come from him. A lot of your geometry comes from him. A lot of calculus comes from him.
I don't know what calculus is.
It's past algebra and geometry.
It's the
Why do
hardest
people
math
call
of all.
him
I
Sir
know,
Isaac?
Logan, I'm sorry.
Huh?
He also did a lot of things in inventions. Newton and Galileo both worked in inventions. They both came up with a lot of things that were useful like that, as did Bacon and Descartes. So
Bacon.
they all did those things. All right, the next one down is the printing press.
What was it?
Oh.
Math, geometry,
Calculus.
Did you take it?
All right, the printing press. The printing press. So the printing press is the next thing. And you know, it's a really good invention for us, as much as we just like books. I can say that honestly, I haven't read a book in years that was on a piece of paper. I have my tablet and I read it off my tablet because you know I poke the screen and the page turns. And I could have thousands of books on here, and I can't carry those around with me. Oh no, now I'm not breaking my
Get a
back.
whack.
So I carry this and I just, you know, the books are loaded onto this and I can just flip through the pages. I can take notes on it. I can actually write on my Kindle app and take notes on it and it'll let me do it or type them in. I actually type faster on here than I do on a keyboard. It's kind of sad. But
That's why I like these Chromebooks. We don't have to take like 50,000 freaking.
Dude, I like your books.
so when I've got this and I'm looking at it and we're looking at this time period, so say that John Mark here's gonna write a book. But he's not gonna actually write the book, he's just gonna copy it. How's your handwriting?
I'm Russian, not good, but
Okay, so can you read everything that he writes when he writes something?
Yes.
Oh,
No.
actually.
Maybe.
That's the problem with the Chromebooks, I've never seen some of your writing. So we're gonna say that John Mark's fair middling, I can probably read all of this, and then he's gonna make a mistake. Now, unless he wants to go back and recopy the entire page by hand, you've done this, right? You've copied things by hand before, and you're like, oh my god, my hand's falling off. He's gonna do this for 10 hours in a day.
John, that's your job now.
So he copies for 10 hours in a day, and he makes a mistake, and at some point, he's either tired or doesn't care. And so he goes, and keeps going, right? So then he's copied this book, now he's gonna give the original back, and he's gonna give it to him to copy the next copy.
Oh, so it's gonna be a
So
mistake.
he's gonna take his book and copy it. At some point, he's going to make a mistake, it's gonna happen. Then this copy that's got 2 mistakes goes to her, and so on, down the line. Until you've got
It's like
more
that telephone
mistakes,
game.
the telephone game, except by paper. It's got more mistakes in it than it does actual facts. You can change the meaning of a book that way. Well, the printing press doesn't have that problem, right? That's just, you know, the stamps that you go stamp and then stamp. You've done those, right?
No.
You've all had those.
That's tax.
I know what those are.
You've done those. So the printing press is going to be like a giant stamp. You got the letters in a big tray, and you move them around where you want them, so they say what they're supposed to.
Like a newspaper.
And then, like a newspaper, and then you lay out the paper. You, of course, have inked the letters, and you're going to roll down the top, smack it down, pull it back up, pull the paper off. Page one. Now you print a 200-page ones. Then you'll reorganize the letters, ink it up again, print 200-page twos. And you'll go through that until you have the whole book done. Now, while it may take me a day to print 200-page ones, if it's a 200-page book in 200 days, I have 200 books.
What?
Right? If it takes me one page a day, and I can put 200 pages in a day, it's a 200-page book. In 200 days, I have 200 books because I printed one page a
One
day.
book a day. Oh, I see where you're going.
So I'm much faster because it's going to take John Mark probably somewhere around 2 years to copy by hand. 10. John says 10. By hand, a 200-page book.
Well, if it's one, it's probably two.
So, and that's just one book.
John, you got
So you're getting on why the printing press was so big. It also is going to drop the price of books because they're no longer hand copied.
Yes.
Now, I won't say that everybody could buy books, but the less wealthy could buy books. Middle class could buy books.
The peasant.
Farmer.
Maybe a farmer might get a book if he stayed up for a couple of years.
You
Couple of years.
can have a book if you save it for 6 months.
Yeah, so it's gonna be a while. All right, so there ends my lecture for today. I will do music tomorrow. So music tomorrow. And you guys have time to work if you need to. Paste notes if you need to.